Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and with me today is the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Tom Young, and web marketing guru, Dennis McCarthy. Today, we are going to do a review of one of our listeners' websites. A few podcasts ago, we mentioned that if you'd like a free audit of your website, go ahead and email us. And currently on the link at intuitivewebsites.com, you can click the link, and it says Website Audit. It'll send you over here, and we can get things started. We're happy to review the websites, and we actually have a website we're going to review today, and it is PlusMoreMedia.com. Tom, tell us a little bit about this website.
Well, I heard from this company, and they asked if we would take some time in our podcast and review the site. And I thought that was a good idea because, we can talk about these website ideas all the time, but unless you see something as a practical solution, it's not as effective. So for the listeners out there, you want to visit the site PlusMoreMedia.com, just like it sounds, PlusMore media.com.
And what do they do, Tom?
Well, that's interesting that you would ask that. The first thing that we would do in an audit is look at our 4 steps, and that begins with strategy. So when I look at a website, one of the first things I ask is, what is this website trying to accomplish? What is the goal of this website? And when you see a site like this, I'm thinking immediately that it's either software or something technical. I see the word web design. I see the word graphic design. I see the word video production. So I'm starting to get the sense that there's some kind of graphic work that they're doing. But what's happening on the web, and this is important to understand, is that your communication has to be so direct because there's so many different kinds of websites out there now that do graphic design in so many different kinds of ways. Like this website, by looking at this website initially, it could be a software company that sells graphic design software. It could be a company that sells graphic designs that have been put together and they're selling them out as clip art. It could be an actually graphic designer that's going to do print and that sort of thing, and maybe websites as well. So the site really, to define the strategy, the site really needs a tagline, and so we're really big on taglines. Now the tagline right now is Creative Media Solutions, but once again,
that sounds a lot more like production or content production for people dealing with media design, like multimedia. We're going to do video. We're going to design your video for your website. Yeah. Or we're going to design the graphics for your website.
Yeah, and so I can't figure out what they do in my first 5 to 10 seconds of looking at the site. Now, what I can say is that it has a professional design. I like where the logo's placed. I like the tab systems, very clear, straightforward navigation. Obviously, whoever laid out the site has a real nice eye for layout and design and that sort of thing. But I want a message to tell me in 5 or 10 seconds, in fact, to tell 10 out of 10 users exactly what the company does. And I think when you use words like creative media solutions, you're not being direct enough because those 3 terms have different definitions for almost anyone who looks at them.
So would it be more effective for them to define what the problem they're solving is?
I think that might help. Now I do know what the company does. Obviously, I've spent some time on the site, so I know what they do. I think a tagline that's more direct, website, I think you might want to get into a tagline that follows that navigation system.
Right.
Website design, graphic design, and video production.
Something that really works on this site is that it's redundant on the homepage, so you can see the navigation on the tabs. You can see the navigation in bright colors where it says web design, graphic design, video production, and down below in these 3 colored boxes we've got web design, graphic design, and video production. So you have to spend more than the quarter second we like to see to figure out what they do, but it is redundant, and you can see what they do with a little bit of a glance.
So that tagline could reinforce that. And so the Creative Media Solutions tagline, maybe that should be part of the content that explains how you're different or what you do that makes you stand apart. But maybe a tagline for the banner might be more appropriate that's, web design, web graphic design, and video production, and then maybe one more additional part of why this company, what makes you different.
That, I think, is a great point, because there are a million companies like this, and you have to have a differentiator, and there's no differentiator at all visible on the homepage.
It might be, we listen to our clients. That's our strength, is really understanding our clients. It might be our projects have great return, or it might be that we have a process for going through this, and so we'll work through that process with you. That process has worked with many, many clients, that sort of thing. So something that's a little bit more of a key differentiator. Then I start to put the strategy together. Well, then, now I understand what they do. I understand why they're different. Now that the site is obviously trying then to generate leads. That would be the strategy. Okay, and then so once we've got the strategy figured out, then the next thing is, well, how does the design of this website drive that strategy?
Yeah, the biggest thing I noticed when I looked at the homepage is that there's no central visual. There's nothing that you look at and say, that's it. That's the picture that describes who these guys are and what they do. Like a nice rotator is more and more common these days, but just the
Explain what a rotator is for people who don't know.
Just a series of photographs that rotate out with nice fading effects, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Like a flash visual, if you will, a flash graphic that...
Yeah, and you don't need to use Flash. When you use Flash, you kind of turn away some users, technically speaking. So you can use lots of different solutions for that. Many CMS packages have rotator functionality built into them. It's become so common. But on this site, I just didn't see that visual identity. I didn't see that one big visual. And when I say big, I really mean big.
I think that's a key point. And part of what pulls the eye away from that is too many elements on the site, on the homepage. Now, this is something that is probably debatable in the world of website marketing, but how much do you need on your homepage? And we tend to recommend that less is more in this case. So get to the key messaging, scale back some of the content on the homepage, and I think it'll be more effective. Now, but the key thing that's the downside here is we don't want to lose any kind of search engine positioning that the site might have because of all this content on the homepage.
But if you've got 20 things you need to tell people about, you've just got too many things to tell people about. Bottom line, a website should have a theme with no more than 3 or 4 things.
And that theme is so important because that's what users relate to. I mean, we're not saying to have a theme because you don't have a great business with a lot of things to offer, but the user can only take so much in.
Right.
And so I think scaling back the amount of content and information on the homepage, focus on what it is you do, why you're different, and then focus in on some type of conversion for the homepage. We do the website audits, and that's our conversion. We could also do something to the effect of a search engine placement report or something like that. All of those things would drive in leads.
And this site does a good job. They've got the conversion where you'd expect it at the top right there. They have a deal of the month, professional website for $14.99. So I'm thinking already that seems like a pretty good price, and this company seems like they can design a decent-looking website. So I've already formed an impression about what these guys offer just by looking at that price and that offer.
Now, one of the things that I noticed on the website was that it does look a lot like a blog. It does look like it's something that was based on one of the blog engines like WordPress or something to that effect. And when I saw the deal of the month, the professional website huge discount, it almost looked like a banner ad for another organization.
Yeah, I think that's got to be that offer has to be duplicated, because if it's just there as a graphic, it's not going to get as many clicks. But if it's also in your homepage, maybe as a text link, I think that would also make it stronger.
And we can talk about banner blindness here for just a second. Tom, do you remember that user testing we did where we asked people to find the button that links them to the registration system or whatever it was, and it was right there. It was a huge element on the page, but it was a banner. It was an entirely graphical button, and half of the users couldn't find it. It was sitting right there.
And it may sound counterintuitive to a company like PlusMoreMedia Group, but graphics are not seen on websites, especially as when there's multiple graphics and a homepage has probably 6 or 7. But the design and development then needs to support that strategy of generating leads. And I think on this site, simplification of the homepage is going to do that. Once you have steps 1 and 2, strategy and design and development in place, then you focus on driving traffic. And I know that there is a blog on this website, and I know that there's a lot of content. I'm not sure what kind of placement you have in the search engines just because it's such a competitive area, but you should be getting pretty decent traffic, I would guess.
I don't know. That's some of the most competitive search engine keywords on earth.
Well, if you look at the top of your browser, you'll see the words web design services, graphic design services, logo design services. So someone has gone in and optimized the site. That's been on their mind.
Yeah, but they optimized it around generic terms that a million other professional web guys are optimizing on. And I find that so many companies, even they want to be a national company, so they don't put where they live in their title tags. And that's a huge mistake because they'll get tons of Virginia business just by optimizing around Virginia somewhere on these titles.
And that's a highly dense area. I mean, probably competitive as well, but certainly it's going to narrow the focus quite a bit if you get your city name in there, your state name in there, in the title tag.
Yeah, that's a really big sandbox he's trying to play in. That's tough.
So let's take a look at the blog. Now, from the home page, I would not be aware at all that there's a blog. In fact, there's not a resources tab, which I think is a great tab for websites like this. And I think most users understand that if I go to our resources, that's where I'm going to get my free stuff. That's where I'm going to get content and more information. So if we're to find the blog, in fact, Glenn, where would you click to try to find the blog from the home page?
First thing that I would do is, because I don't see it up on the top headers, I would scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page.
And we did that.
And look for blog, and I don't see it down there. So the next thing that I'm going to think of is I'm going to make a generic assumption that it would be under news, because you would update at a blog. If you're going to update your blog daily, weekly, whatever it happens to be, it's typically what news is happening. So I would probably go to news next and click news as an assumption.
Click on the news tab. We're still on the same website, and there are articles posted there. It is a pretty long page to scroll through. I think it might be better to have just the title of the article. And
it does look like that is where the blog engine is, because if you're looking there for the tags at the bottom of each post, you'll see down there there's not a place to – there's no comments on each one of them. There's a place to comment. There's tags that are there. So it looks like that's where the blog is.
It is, and he did some things right. Every article is clickable, leading to its own page. Every entry has tags at the bottom. Every entry has a little who we are and how you can contact us section. I would suggest for this website that they do a little more work on optimizing the titles of the blogs, but he did a lot right with the optimization of his blog content.
So how can you see individual articles on this blog? That's kind of the question I would have. Is it looks like it's one long scrolling page.
Well, that's another thing I want to mention. I think links should be underlined, and maybe some designers would balk at that. But on this particular example, you can't really figure out that the black headlines are clickable links unless you actually try them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's no way that 10 out of 10 users are going to see that. So I think if you're using blue links throughout your website, they should always be blue, and they should be underlined.
Blue, yeah, I would say blue links or underlined, but very few people will click on that. I didn't see that. So that's a good way of organizing the content a little bit more instead of having that long page.
Now, you can also, with a blog, you can put a little synopsis in what it is so they can read bits and pieces of the article and kind of get a little brief description of what it is and then click through. That would probably be a good idea on that main page where all of those articles are listed.
Yeah, the importance of, once again, the tagline, or just having a summary tagline for this as well.
And, furthermore, with regard to the news tab, I don't have any particular reason to be interested in the news surrounding PlusMoreMedia Group. So I'm not likely to click on that button. I want that tab to be more descriptive.
I would call
more
it blog.
Compelling.
Oh, would you call it blog, maybe?
Or maybe just blog that indicates it's about internet marketing or design.
Design
something.
blog or something. Yeah. If you try to get then into step 3, driving traffic, I think the site is on the right track. I think that Dennis's idea of going more regionally or locally with the title tags is going to be great.
And focusing on key things that they do that are a little more niche-y, like the video production is more niche-y than just straight web design. And there's probably all kinds of great keywords around the niches surrounding video production that he could definitely get placed on.
Well, and I think a hot market right now is video production for the web.
Exactly.
Right? Because you don't have to spend a fortune to get decent video on the web. And we recommend all the time that our clients add video and get on YouTube and that sort of thing. So the fourth part of our 4-step process is really web performance, website performance. And in this case, that would be how many leads are coming from the website and how good a job does the website do in converting referrers. So if somebody's been referred over to the site, Do they become a lead? Do they contact you and do business with you because the site reinforces what they want to see? I think in this case, the site needs some more work in that area. It is difficult to find contact information on the pages unless you click contact. We like to have a phone number and email on every page of the site. And the reason we do that is because in user testing, we've seen people fumble around, trying to find the contact tab. And we've also seen people leave a website when they didn't see a phone number on the page. And I know you might think, well, of course, they could just click contact. But they don't do that. They tend to be pretty impulsive, and they bounce around quickly. So I would get your phone number and email on all the pages at least. I like the fact that you have your company address listed there. I know, once again, it sounds kind of silly to even say that, but a lot of people don't even put their company address on websites. You definitely need to have that.
And another thing about the phone number and contact information on all the pages, especially the home page, a lot of people like myself, when I do searches and I find a company and I want to contact them, I want to go right to the homepage. I want that information right there.
Absolutely. Have contact information on the homepage. And it's great you have a form on your contact page too. Now, what I would do with that form is maybe make it a little bit more of an offering. For example, what is your challenge? What are you looking to do? How can we help you? What is your greatest design challenge or video production challenge? Try to get a little bit more interaction from people, or maybe offer a free consulting session to review what their needs are, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we see from the stats that less than half the people that visit Contact Us pages ever complete them, way less than half. And you need to restate the offer on the contact page while they're still kind of indecisive about, should I contact these guys?
The answer is yes, you should.
And I want to know when they're going to call me back. So often these days you just leave this random voicemail and you don't even know if the guy's in Bermuda or something like that. So
or sending an email is knowing how quickly can you expect a response.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ideally, it should say, we'll contact you within the hour. And if that were possible, that would be the ideal.
Another thing that I think helps conversions is seeing a picture of the key people that run this company. Definitely puts a personality onto the website, and you can get a sense of this is a real person. There's just so many sites out there that are just generic, and they're really design elements, and they're generic with content. But seeing a real person behind this, I think, is important.
Well, especially with the move to social media and how big social media and how important social media is in business these days. People want to do business with a human being, with a real person that they can connect with. They don't want to do business with a business. They want to do business with a person.
That's how it works out in the end. And the website has to communicate that, absolutely.
And in this market, you got to know that the guy you're working with has some credentials, because there's a lot of web guys out there. Yeah. So I want to see the credentials of the guy who's going to be doing this for me.
A client list would be a good thing. I don't know if we've seen that.
I was looking for that. I'm not seeing a gallery.
They have the studios, the graphic design studio, web design studio.
If you did user testing on a site like this, I guarantee that the users would want to see who else have you done this work for, and are they happy with you?
Definitely.
I'm also seeing the Contact Us thing on the bottom right, below the fold on all the pages. And, it's nice that it's on all the pages, but I might think about scooching that one up to the top right, because a lot of people won't see the Contact tab or won't use the Contact tab.
Yeah. And try to get, avoid blocks of text if you can. Try to focus more on bullet items. If you do have blocks of text, have a header on all of them. And I think those are some good ideas, good suggestions.
Can we loop back to the homepage? With regard to the amount of content on the homepage, I feel strongly that two major things I would change with this website is a strong fundamental visual, and there's just too many words on that homepage. I think the navigation should do the talking, and to try to stuff all this information on the homepage, I just know it's not going to get read.
I think if you look at your Google Analytics and your stats, I think that what Dennis is saying would agree with that. In fact, you're probably seeing a lot of people using that top nav and going to company and web design and that sort of thing, because it's at the top left, where you want more people clicking on the deal of the month or digging deeper into the site, the Contact Us page, that sort of thing.
So what would you say they're big things that they need to look at?
Well, let's do that. Let's give them the action plan for the site. Let's do it by our 4-step process. The first thing on the strategy side, let's simplify the content, come up with a more direct tagline, and have a much more easier to find and easier to see conversion point on the website from the strategy side. On the design and development side, I think what Dennis said is great. Let's focus the graphic images so that the users can see your messaging through the graphics, and once again focus toward conversions. On the traffic side, I think we've got to definitely go more local to Virginia, to the Washington, D.C. area, to Arlington, that sort of thing. And on the traffic side as well, there's a lot of other things you can do to drive more traffic. If we looked at your stats, we probably could help you out with that as well.
And go after niche capabilities like the video production.
Absolutely. And in the website performance, which in this case is all about conversion, is really strengthen the conversion as it relates to your content. So as people read through your content, bring them back into that conversion funnel. And then probably a thing that would be great here is rather than having the conversion be the deal of the month, have the conversion be the offer of the month. And that offer is probably going to be your time to help them through their issues or their problems in some way.
And that also includes the contact page. On the contact page is to have how can we help you or what.
Yeah, we found
reinforce.
If you reinforce the idea that you're here to help them solve their problems and grow their business, I think you'll get more leads from the site.
Well, you heard it, folks, and if you would like your website audited, you can go to intuitivewebsites.com, click the website audit, and that will start the process for you. Folks, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, and for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.